Have you ever wondered what makes someone like you different from the best sellers in the world, consistently bringing in millions of dollars of sales every single year? Most believe it's how much experience they have, how naturally talented or extroverted they are, or even how many reps they've put in. But that's not the main driver in my experience of massive success. Mainly because sales has little to do with how naturally good you are at speaking with people, or even how many times you do it, but it has everything to do with how good you are at understanding human psychology and taking advantage of it. I've seen this across more than a decade in B2B sales, responsible for driving over $50 million in revenue between the companies I've worked for, giving sales trainings all around the world, and currently leading 3 sales orgs at a billion-dollar software company. So in this video, I'm going to show you the most important psychology lessons that have helped me close millions of dollars in sales that will help you reduce the buying resistance from your leads. We'll start with the 2 buyer biases you have to understand to have any success in sales, and then we'll cover 3 psychological tactics that you can implement to immediately win more deals. I love this topic because understanding buyer psychology isn't about tricking or misleading people, it's about better serving your customers. But be careful, because as useful as they can be for serving people, they could also be misused. So please use these lessons to help your customers gain long-term value, as that will help you maximize your long-term success as well. For all these principles to make sense, you need to understand that buyers are biased against you from the beginning. Think about the salesperson stereotype. This stereotype is the driver of the first psychological element you need to understand: negativity bias. Years ago, I was doing door-to-door sales. Hated that job, but the worst I ever felt was when I'd knock on a door or ring a doorbell, and then I would immediately hear a baby start crying. And then a pissed off mom or dad would show up to the door to see who it is, and imagine how frustrated they would be when they realized it was a salesman that had woken up their baby from the nap that they'd been trying for who knows how long to get down for their nap. For every buyer you talk to, they've had a bad experience with a salesperson. Maybe it's that door-to-door seller that woke their baby up, maybe it's a pushy car salesman, maybe it's just a seller that isn't good at what they do or has terrible energy. But because of that negativity bias, you are guilty until proven innocent. So your first goal when talking to a lead is to overcome the negativity bias. I'll teach you my favorite ways to do that, but first you need to explain the second psychological challenge you are up against: confirmation bias. Buyers expect you to be lazy, unprepared, and superficial because of that bias. If you jump in with "how's the weather?" and you sound like every other salesperson they've spoken to, you're confirming that bias. Buyers expect you to not understand them. So when one of your first questions is, "Can you tell me more about your company?" they think, "I knew it, they don't even know what we do." Buyers expect you to not listen to them. So when you fly through your pre-planned scripted questions, they think, "Yep, they're not even listening, my answers don't matter, they don't care to listen." We've got this uphill battle against human psychology because of the negativity and confirmation biases, but the good news is we can use human psychology to our advantage to get past them. One of the simplest methods to overcome initial bias is to get your buyer saying yes early. One of my sellers today has an incredible 75% success rate on convincing buyers to listen to his pitch on a cold call by mastering this technique. He uses an opener, which makes it easy to say yes, which makes future yeses even simpler. All he says is, "This is name with Launch Darkly. Just to be transparent, this is a cold call. I was wondering if I could have 20 seconds to tell you why I'm calling, and if it's irrelevant, you can throw your phone across the room." Using transparency, which most sellers aren't transparent, plus humor, he's getting a lot of yeses to continue the call. Then we work to structure the rest of the cold call to continue getting more yeses in a tactic called the yes ladder. Getting micro commitments early in a cold call, or even early in a sales cycle with questions that are easy to say yes to, makes it easier for the buyer to say yes to bigger questions like, "Will you take a meeting with me to discuss more?" or even, will you purchase this product? I love psychology in sales. It's made a massive difference in my career. Most people will watch this video, think it's interesting, and maybe apply a couple of parts of it. They'll win a few more deals, make a bit more money, which is great. But a few of you will use these tactics to transform how you sell, which will also transform your commission checks and career. To help the most motivated of you master these concepts, I've built up one of the most powerful programs on sales psychology that I've personally used to generate millions of dollars in sales. And you can click this link in the description to get free access. Let's go to the 4th tactic now, and it's a bit counterintuitive, but that that makes sense when you remember the bias we're up against, confirmation negativity. If we do what's intuitive, we are likely doing what all other sellers do, which is not the goal. Most sellers love to talk about positive social proof. This customer bought my product and now they're crushing it. I want you to try negative social proof. If you talk about those that didn't try it first and later regretted it, you'll get better results because you're really pushing the fear of missing out from your buyer. One of my favorite examples of this is when competing against cheap competitors. The buyer might be considering going with the cheaper option because it's good enough for now, or we can always come back to the more expensive option when we're ready for it. Positive social proof would sound like, well, Acme had that decision. They chose to buy our premium product, and look at the massive success that they've had. That's fine, but negative social proof can be even stronger. It might sound like, yeah, I understand that approach. We do see that sometimes. Just 6 months ago, I actually had a customer make that same decision, and they went with the cheaper option. I caught up with them a few weeks ago. Implementation took longer than expected. Functionality isn't working like they were told it would, and now they had to explain to their boss why they made a bad decision and need to buy something better now. Now we've got the customer thinking differently. Instead of thinking, well, I could save money, which is a lower cost or a lower risk option, they're thinking, is saving some money worth having to explain to my boss later that I made a bad decision and now need to buy something different? Social proof in all forms is helpful, but negative social proof is powerful and rarely used. Now, the fifth and last tip is by far one of the most useful and powerful mechanisms you can use while selling. I still use it when I'm selling. I use it when I'm recruiting because it's simple and it works. All you have to do is treat someone like they want to become and have them associate your service with that goal identity. It's called the labeling effect, and it works because people care about how others perceive them. I used this when I was selling an expensive analytics software to help companies understand their customer experience. I'd say if all you want your basic data, then our low cost and even our free competition can do that for you just fine. But if you want to drive organizational improvement and inform strategic decisions, then the data by itself won't be enough. You'll want to be able to tie the data back to key outcomes with enough confidence to give recommendations to your executive team. Then I would ask a simple question. Companies like yours are at all different phases of maturity. Are you at a stage where you just want the data? Or are you at the stage where you want to drive strategic change with the data? Now, how do you think my buyers labeled themselves when I asked this question? 100% of the time, they labeled themselves as wanting to push the boundaries, drive transformation, be strategic, and through this very simple tactic of helping them label themselves how they wanted to be perceived, I was also labeling my product as the one that helps them reach that goal. Now, I've used every single one of these psychological principles when I'm selling something because they are all connected in one way or the other. However, they all also need the right timing to be effective. That's why I made this video breaking down over $50 million of sales experience in just 10 minutes, where I go deeper into the skills you actually need to be successful, and I hope to see you there.